Your most embarrassing failure can actually be your most profitable opportunity. Hey there, it's Brian from Hope Media, and I want you to know that you have a message to share and an audience to serve. And you might not know exactly what that message is. So, in this video, I wanted to walk you through a few exercises that we take our clients through to help you discover what your unique message is. But before we do that, I first wanted to share the fact that what you've been through isn't wasted when you share it with somebody else. That's right. What you've been through isn't wasted when you share it with somebody else. Now, I recommend that you heal before you reveal. If you're going through a tough time right now, if you're going through a relationship challenge, a financial challenge, a health challenge, maybe it's not time to share yet, but there will be a time to share. The day will come when you're ready to share. And actually, I don't really believe in ready. I think that one day you will feel called and you will start to share. And when you start to share, what you'll see is that your story can impact other people. So, how do you figure it out? How do you figure out your story? How do you figure out what makes you different, what makes you unique? Well, the concept is mine your past for diamonds. Mine your past for diamonds. You look back at where you were and you think about a time where you hit a wall, where you felt stuck, where you felt overwhelmed, frustrated, abandoned, discouraged. Something didn't work out. Now, most of the time, I gotta tell you, having done this now for 10 years, most of the time, it actually has to do with relationships. It's a relationship at work, it's a relationship at home, it's a relationship with your friend group, it's a relationship in your family. But somewhere along the way, there was a broken relationship. There was a challenge that happened. Now, most of the people I work with, that's it right there. They hit a wall. There was a miscommunication, there was discouragement, there was frustration. And what they actually learn to do, and that's true for you as well, what you actually learn to do is take that challenge and turn it into fuel. That challenge that you faced, maybe it was a formative move in your early childhood. Maybe it was a relationship breakup. Maybe it was losing an opportunity that you thought was going to be the perfect opportunity for you. Through the years, I've coached people that have lost jobs, broken relationships, really pulled out of situations that they thought this is where God had them, and all of a sudden it changed, and they didn't know what to do. And I have to tell you, He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. That right now He's working in you and through you to accomplish His mission for the world. And that right there, my friend, is probably your sweet spot. That your message often comes from your mess. Your mess is your message. Now, I actually think it's not your mess that you're currently in, it's the mess that you've been through. So you can say some of the most powerful words in the English language. You look at your client or in on a page or online and you say, I know what it's like. I've been there. I've been there too. I know what it's like. So let's just go through a couple examples here. And what I actually like to do is go all the way back and actually learn this from Donald Miller. Donald Miller from StoryBrand. He used to have a business called Storyline, where he would help people walk through their life and walk through kind of like what God had done in their life. And he had this really fantastic exercise. So definitely give credit to him for this initial kind of idea. Although I've seen other people talk about like a timeline of your life or your lifeline, that sort of thing. But I like to start all the way back. Your first memory. What was your first memory? What were some of the first things that you experienced? So for me, I'm the oldest of two. One of my earliest memories is picking up my sister from the hospital. So like, okay, well, what does that say about me and who I am? What message might I have from there? And here's the thing. As you think back on your memories, there are lessons learned, both positive and negative. And so just pay attention to what those are. So what are the earliest memories? What about your elementary school experience? For me, I was growing up in New Jersey, and I was this Christian kid at a big public school, a pretty secular environment. And so, what was it like for me as a Christian kid, as a church kid, to go to this public school and the pressures, even in third, fourth grade, the pressures, the relationships, and fitting in? And there's a story that I often tell about like the most popular kid in my school, and he came over to my house, uh, probably just a month or two before we moved away. And I thought we were now best friends, but it turns out he was just being nice to me because I was moving and his mom made him. And so that story of like rejection, trying to fit in, wanting to be cool, and like that is actually a big theme in my life. But it traces all the way back to fourth grade and Eddie on the front porch of my house. Well, what about middle school? What are some of those formative moments in middle school? A lot of us have these formative moments that occurred in middle school. High school, oh my goodness, we could unpack that for a year. All the things you said, things that were said to you, things you did, things that were done to you, things that you started to believe, things you believe that turned out not to be true. So much of there in that past, in the garden of your past, there are diamonds that are buried in there. Now, you might be thinking, Brian, what are you talking about? Like how exactly does that work? Well, think about this. You know what it's like to go through that experience that you've been through. And generally it's a negative experience. Like generally it's something that someone said. You think about what you remember the most. Like there's a key relationship in my life. We were connected for probably 3 years. There's this one thing this person said. Just one thing, like a short phrase. And every time I think about this person, that's the first thing that comes to mind. And I kind of have to bat it away and go, no, that's not who this person is. That's not our relationship anymore. But there's this one thing that this person said that is the first thing that always comes to mind whenever I think about this person. It's still here. I've prayed for that to be released and it's still here. It's just kind of right here. Anytime I think about this person, even right now, I'm like, oh, and it hurt. And so all of that you've been through is kind of in the field of your life. If you think about it, it's buried. Some of this is buried relationship after relationship or decade after decade, year after year, move after move, job transition after job transition. And it can be really scary to go back and start to dig it up and go, huh, like what was happening there and what is the lesson that I've learned through that? But here's why I recommend you do that. You might want to work with a counselor or a coach or a pastor or a friend through this process. But inside of that garden are buried treasure. Inside that garden are the diamonds. So if you know what it's like, so for example, for me, I'd be something like they call a third culture kid. Grew up in New Jersey, then we moved to Canada at a formative age. Now I live in the Carolinas, and there's just nowhere that I feel like I belong, like I fit. It's just part of my past. And you have something similar as well. So I'm not the only weird one here. Okay, we all have something. But like I just don't feel like I 100% fit in. There's no place that is home on this earth because of that third culture phenomenon. You have something like that too. Maybe yours is similar to mine. Well, what does that make possible? My friend and mentor Dan Miller says this. What does that make possible? This is your message. This is your message. You can take the pain of your past, you can take the challenges that you faced, you can look at them and say, "You know what? That's not really something I even think about anymore. It's over here. But what if I were to take it, pick it up, look at it, and say, who needs this? Who needs to hear this? Who needs to hear that they're not alone? Who needs to hear just even some of what I've shared today? You might go, "Oh yeah, I totally relate to what you're saying, and I didn't even know that about you, and that makes me more relatable to you." That story of your past, the story that you can share, is powerful for somebody who feels like nobody else understands. That is the power of you sharing your story. One thing that we say at our company all the time is that your hard story can become your hope story. And actually, we have our conference, the Hope Story Conference. And it's all about helping you discover your message so you can share your message. You have a message to share and an audience to serve. So, the exercise I wanted to share with you today is to go back and mine your past for diamonds. Look at your earliest memories, look at your elementary school time, middle school, high school, beyond, dating, marriage, kids, moves, career, maybe losing family members, losing friends, like all the different stages of your life. You can look back and say, "Wow, I learned a lesson here. How can I share that lesson with other people?" There's this fantastic verse. They're all great, but there's this verse that talks about finding people who are worthy, finding people who you can entrust the message to. And I think that's you. You have been given a gift. Sometimes that gift is wrapped in hard experience, but your experience is this gift. The lesson that you learn by going through that process is a gift to be shared with other people. So how do you do this? How do you do this? Well, you start by sharing it, and that might be just starting by sharing it in a journal or going live on social media or starting a podcast or writing it in a book or sharing it on a blog. There's a lot of ways to share your message. But first, you have to figure out what your message is. So that's my challenge to you today. Go back, start to think about it, so write it out. In my upcoming book, I actually have a page which is helping you go through that timeline of your life. What I recommend is four. You find four kind of low moments in your life and four high moments in your life. And often the low and the high are kind of like in Canada, we call it the teeter totter. It's like a balance. Like I hit this really low part of my life, but then look what happened a year or 2 or 3 years later. And then that kind of led to this other thing that was kind of low, but then that led to something that was high. And the journey of your life is so valuable for someone else to hear because only you have your story. Especially if you're feeling overwhelmed by trying to share your message and you see some other person online and they're super famous, they've got thousands of likes, they've got a big following, they've already written a bunch of books. You might look at them and go, I don't really have anything to share. No, you do. You do have something to share. I'm listening to an album right now, and the album's called "I'm Alone." No, you're not. And I just love that album. It's like, I'm alone. No, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not alone, and your story isn't wasted. What you've been through isn't wasted when you look at it, maybe refine it a little bit, figure out a good way to share it with some skill, and then you share it, and somebody else says, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I had no idea somebody else felt the way I did, and look at where you are now." And your story can be a story of hope. Your hard story can become a hope story to help other people move forward in their life. Let me know if this encouraged you today.